I hope I can be heard, and I hope my screen is clear.
Yes, you can be heard, and your screen is currently shared.
Thank you very much. Like I've been introduced, I'm Tony Hasashya. I'm a medical doctor, a businessman, a preacher man, and a number of other things, and a family man. Above all, thank you so much, IFU, for giving me the opportunity to share with everybody. And I'll be sharing about effective negotiation skills. Special reference will be coming from the story of Abraham and God when he negotiates on behalf of Sodom and Gomorrah.
Sorry. Please put your PowerPoint in presenter mode.
Okay.
On the bottom right, just click that, yes.
I think we're now good. Yes. So that is our reference scripture, and it comes from Genesis chapter 18, 17 to 33. We all know that story. In the interest of time, I will not read all of it, but the summary of it is that the Lord comes down and is headed for Sodom and Gomorrah, but on his way, he has a message for Abraham. Abraham, as a person who is hospitable, hosts him, and after a meal, leaves a blessing and a promise for Abraham. And as he sets off, he ponders to himself and says, will I hide anything from Abraham, seeing that he's going to order his household and to teach them after the Lord, that the Lord may bring to pass what he has promised to Abraham. And then he tells him about the outcry against Sodom. And Abraham then realizes this is the fate of Sodom is sealed. They're in trouble. And so he first explains to God that, God is the judge of the universe. He's a righteous judge. And he tells him, you cannot ban the wicked from the righteous. So he gives a preamble. And after that, he says, what if you have 50 who are righteous there? You cannot just wipe them out. And God says, I won't. And he negotiates down all the way to 10. And still God accepts. And he says that if there are 10, I will not. And Abraham gets his deal, and off he walks. And we know the story that unfortunately they couldn't get the 10. So the angels go down, and we'll read the rest. So that is a very good example of a negotiation. But life is generally full of negotiations. We negotiate from childhood. When a child wants the parents' attention, the child will cry, and that's like a negotiation. And when the parents carry them, then they keep quiet. So it's an exchange for being calm. They exchange that for affection. We negotiate when we get married. You have some people who go with you for kwanjula or kuchala, and they will negotiate on your behalf with the bride's parents and the people concerned. We negotiate when you're buying something. You negotiate on places to go. If for example, you're deciding, do we go to Akasha Mall to have a meal? Do we go to Chisasi? Those are all negotiations. So negotiation is all around us. And so it is important to understand what negotiation is and what it is not. Many of us would look at negotiation sometimes as you pushing as hard as you can for a discount, for a concession, and so you get it. So it's viewed as if it's a haggle. Some view it as if it is something where you go to get as much as you can out. But that's different. Negotiation is a discussion that resolves an issue in a way that both parties find acceptable. So there is, in that definition, you consider there is a discussion, there is at least two parties, and there is acceptability on both sides. That is successful negotiation. So that is important. And the purpose for it is basically to reach an agreement such that all parties are satisfied enough that they will be willing to carry out what they have agreed. Because if one party is not satisfied, they will oftentimes say, I think they gave me a raw deal, or they will go away grumbling or something like that. So it's important that both parties are satisfied enough to commit to carry out what they have actually agreed upon. And in negotiating, it's important to know that there are several outcomes that we could get, but we have very particular ones that we are interested in. You could get a win-win. And in this particular case, both sides feel that they have gained value, and there is value in this negotiation or in the agreed upon position. You could get a win-lose, in which case you push hard and the other person loses as you win. This could be like if you're making a purchase, for example. I remember one time I was in China and I was just bargaining. My brother-in-law had visited us, so there was something we're buying and I was just bargaining. And this guy almost started to cry and was like, no, that's my lowest price. You're pushing me so hard. So in such a case, it's like the person purchasing has pushed for a win-lose. And in that case, that's not a good outcome because it's not sustainable. The next time the person will see you, or the next time you interact with them, they perceive you as somebody who wants to grab. That's not a good outcome either. You could have a lose-win where you compromise so that the other person gains, and you say maybe in future I'll gain. But the challenge with this particular outcome also is that the next time, again, the person will know that you can lose. And also you need to feel good about the deal, and you need to have a good outcome for other negotiations, both either with that person or with another person. Otherwise, you develop negativity. So lose-win is not also a good outcome. And then there is lose-lose, where both of you compromise to the extent that it's not a good deal for any of the parties. That's not a good deal. Then there is compromise, where you say it's a 50-50. Could you do better? Yes, I could have done better. But let's just compromise. That is also not a very good outcome. And then there is the no deal. What we are aiming at really is the win-win. And if you can't get a win-win, then it is better not to deal, because these other outcomes eventually leave one of the parties aggrieved, or they tend to create room for somebody not to fulfill on their commitments. And if you look at how Abraham was negotiating in that particular case, you will notice that he kept giving alternatives. The approach he used was, we call it leg in the door. It means that if your leg can go in the door, then you can make sure that your whole body can later go. So he starts off with a very high offer, and he goes on reducing it. He says, okay, if this happens, he gives different permutations. But notice he doesn't go to zero. He doesn't say, what if there are no righteous people, or one, because he knew Lot was there. What if there is one person? Because there is a certain expectation. Of course, Bible scholars would tell you that in those days, 10 would make a council, so they needed at least 10 to do that. So that is important. it's important that you consider that. And of course, we have different negotiation styles that people bring on the table. If you look at that chart there are those who come with a mentality to compete. They just want to hustle. This is particularly common in businesses, especially when you don't know. You just say, let me go and get the best deal I can get, and you push. I remember I was doing some, we do construction, and I was doing some construction, and one of the guys was for stones. And so I negotiated with him a rate that, in my opinion, I thought was fair, but I think the prices had changed. The number of people he had was too high, and he saw that he wouldn't pass. Nonetheless, he accepted. I think that he wanted to just get the deal. And as soon as I gave him the deal and gave him a deposit, he worked for about a day and disappeared. That's an example of a win-lose, because he felt he had lost. And when I called him late after some time, and I said, but you accepted and you went away with the money, he was like, there's no way I was working for that money. He explained the cost. And I asked him, why didn't you tell me that beforehand? But not all people are skilled in negotiation. So you need to be able to read the body language. You need to understand that market. You need to know what would compromise and what would make a win for the other person. So some people just compete. Others are compromise, as we have seen, and others avoid altogether. I lose, you lose. Let's just leave it without an attempt to find out, do we have any common ground that we share? Because there is a ground which you want more things that are not negotiable. There are things that are not negotiable for the other party, but there are things where your interests cross. And that's where we are looking at. So we are looking at the top right corner, the collaborative this part here, where you win, I win. That's what we are looking at. Of course, we don't either want the accommodative, where you win, I lose. I give up so much for the sake. That is not good either. It should be principled. It should be based on principles. The question then is, how do we negotiate? I see our time is fast spent, so I'll just run through this fairly quickly. But how do we negotiate effectively for us to get a win-win? The first rule, it is said that if you can avoid negotiation, you do that by being fair, either if you're in the marketplace, in your pricing, or in your ask. You assess what are the rates, what is a competitive price, what can I charge, what is a competitive offer if it is a salary offer, what are the norms. So then you are fair enough that the other party sees that this is value. And you can, of course, anticipate resistance, because every time you make an offer, the buyer or the person who you are negotiating with may not take it at first glance. They always assume there is more that I can obtain. So, but if your pricing is fair or your offer is fair, if it's not about a sale, but it's some value that you're offering, then you have a very good starting point. It is also important that you explain the value that you're bringing. A lot of times we want to rush to talk about pricing, for example, if it is in a product, without necessarily helping the other person understand the value. So talk about the value. The second rule is that delay concessions. Don't be quick to give concessions. I'll give an example in sales where in my company, we discovered that every time the sales people would come and say, now the prices are lower, because for them, they want to make it easier for them. And then you say, okay, reduce. Then they will come back by evening and say, now I have a customer who is offering lower. Because once you give them the authority to offer concessions, many of them who are untrained will start by saying, hello, my name is Tony. I'm selling this thing. and I can give you a discount of 10%. You don't start a negotiation with that. Research shows that early concessions have very little impact, because when you give an early concession, it's a signal that there is more. This is just the start. So the other person is more inclined to concessions than to actually seeing your value. So buying desire or desire must always precede concessions. Discounts and concessions don't increase attractiveness in the absence of the desire, the inherent desire of the person to get something. So communicate the value that you are offering. Communicate the value that you are offering rather than starting off by offering concessions. I'll give an example. If I am selling, I used to sell ultrasound machines, and I would sell they were fairly cheap, 6.5 million a machine, and would make off a bit of money, but they were tedious and all that. And so we said, you know what, I don't know why we did that, but we realized that we needed to up our game. So we imported better ones, and these were costing 50 million. And people would buy them much faster than they bought the ones of 6.5, because we would explain the value. We would say, this machine can do 3D, it can do 4D, it can work on the heart, it can do all these other things. And the person gets to see the value. And we discovered people had no problem buying the more expensive machine as long as they appreciated the value. We had another scenario in the clinic where charging much less money and the patients were few. And then we noticed that they were perceiving that, because we thought that we needed to be cheap. And then we noticed they were perceiving the service as inferior. Why would you be a consultant and have such a nice service and charge very little? And they were not coming. So upon the advice of a professional, he said, no, charge at least market standard. Go according to because you are underpricing. It's not good to overprice. It's not good to underprice. Charge what is due to the service. And so we increased our professional fees from, I think, 50 to 75. And our numbers now went up because the people could perceive the value that we are offering. So concentrate on the value you are offering rather than the price point. Don't be in a rush to offer concessions. If it's in negotiation that is non-monetary, again, communicate the value that you're bringing on board. That's important. Make sure you prepare. Many of us discuss and negotiate generically. You're buying land, you say you put out a couple of brokers, and then they go and find land. So if the guy says 200 million, you can't say 100. You probably say 150, and then you go and negotiate. That is not wise. You should anticipate your counterpart's needs. Why are they selling? What is their offering? You want to sell something, you should anticipate the customer's needs. You should read their emotions. You should invest in preparing. Find out, if I am in real estate, and for me, I would know what is the price of a decimal in Chisasi. How about in Intinda? What is the price in Charger? I need to have that data so that I'm more objective. Otherwise, anything that comes, I may take it or I may overcharge and outprice myself out of the market. Anticipate. Then if somebody wants to buy, you need to know their need. For example, if a person wants to buy a house from us, one of the things that I have learned is that I don't come and tell you this house is this so much. No, I want to find out what's your name. I want to find out, do you have children or not? Because if you have 4 children, a 2-bedroom house probably is not ideal for you. You need a 4-bedroom house. I will ask, what is your taste? Other people say, so I will not try to just throw a product at you. I want to understand what's your need. Why are you in the market? It could be that you just got a bumper bonus, and that is all you're going to get. And you can't maybe meet a certain amount, but at least you have fare. I should not let you go I need to understand. From there, I can then explain, we can give you a house. It has a room for the maid. That gives you privacy. It has 2 other rooms. The boys can be separate from the girls, and you can see the masters, and your wife can have this. That already, I will tell you about the location, and I'll tell you about the value that I'm bringing. From there, then I can tell you, this is for a modest so much, you see. And at that point, your focus is not on price, okay? Your focus is on value. I'll tell you, there is a research that shows that people associate what they focus on with the cause. So if you focus on price, they will associate it with expense. Whereas if you focus on the value, they will associate it with benefit. So prepare, be clear with your objectives, you yourself, and do your research. Ask questions, find out a number of things in the field you're negotiating. Aim for a win-win. I have already said that. And know that everything is negotiable. You can always negotiate. A lot of us don't get because we don't ask. The Bible also tells us that we have not because we ask not. So many things can be negotiated. But when you go to a big shop, you are intimidated. When you go to a big organization and they hire you, you are intimidated. It is said that ladies, research shows that ladies are more likely to work for less for the same pay. I mean, for the same kind of job as men, because they do not negotiate. You can negotiate a salary, even if it is the UN, even if it is Bank of Uganda, by showing the value that you bring on table, okay? The 6th thing that you need to know quickly is that you have basically the law of 4. In this law is a very interesting one. It says that when you're negotiating, however big a deal is or a small deal, there are usually just about 4 issues upon which the decision will be made. You need to find out what those 4 are. And these account for 80% of the discussion. And sometimes they come at the end and then you discover, this person is entering this deal because maybe they are retiring. And because of that, they are looking for something near their grand. So the second part of that law will actually say, of those 4 issues, 1 is the main one, the 3 are secondary. So look out, what is the main issue that is driving decision and address it. Always try to find out. Don't think that people just come and do things. If somebody is saying that they are coming to marry a certain lady, there is a very major issue. Why? And the others are secondary. You focus on that. If you're buying a house, there is a major issue why that person is buying a house in a particular place, and the others are secondary. 4 issues majorly. The rest are secondary. So 1 of the 4 is the main one, the 3 are secondary. So identify those 4. Timing. Did you know that if you go to purchase something, you're more likely to get a better deal at the end, towards the end of the month, than at the beginning? The reason being, at the beginning, the salespeople are more relaxed about their targets. At the end, they have to hit their targets, so they are more likely to give you concessions. So your bargaining power is higher. Time. How much time do you have? If somebody has a date that is fast approaching, their bargaining power is less. So you need to identify, when is it the best time for me to negotiate? Timing is everything in negotiation. Is this a good time? You'll find that if you're selling a car or a house, you likely sell higher during December season than during February season. And you'll sell more in that season as well, and at a higher price. The people want to enter their homes before the Christmas break or the New Year's, and they want to show that they bought something. Whereas, if it is Feb, they are focused more on institution. So your negotiation is lower at that time. So timing is everything, and the time is everything. Focus on the terms more than the cost. Again, the tendency is to think that if I gave a cheaper offer or if I gave a more attractive offer, then the person will buy. No, and sometimes the terms are better. Let me give you what I mean. Suppose I'm buying land, okay, and somebody says this piece of land is 30 million. And another one is offering a piece of land at 40 million. Maybe it's better, but I'm looking at this one giving me a year to pay, and this one saying I want it cash because I may have 5. For example, when we were buying our home, we didn't have a lot of money, but the guy gave us an offer and said, you commit just anything. I give you a bit of time, you do a search like 2 weeks, and after that commit 50%, then I give you time. The terms then become an attractive part, and that negotiation is more likely to succeed. The terms rather than the value you are offering. So look at the terms, look at the process, look at why somebody is doing that. So terms more than the cost. The third thing, the ninth thing, second last thing you need to know is your points of power. And I will not over elaborate on this, but there are about 10 types of power that one would have. One of them is authority. For example, if somebody perceives that you are an authority in an area, they are more likely to respect your position of negotiation than when they perceive that you are not an authority, okay, in that area. The 10th thing is reciprocity. In good negotiation, there is what we call the law of reciprocity. In other words, if you have done something good for somebody, they are more likely to be favorable towards you. So being good to people, there's a research that shows that when people went into a candy shop and they were offered a small chocolate at the beginning, hello, you're welcome, they were 40% more likely to buy than when they just walked in, because it's a natural tendency to feel like I need to pay back. Hence the statement, one good turn deserves another. Quickly, I'll tell you that there is a science that is called pre-persuasion. In other words, before the negotiation, there is something that can drive the person to make a decision that is favorable. And we call that pre-persuasion. So you work at it before. And this has 6 things that you will look at if you are making a negotiation. I've talked about reciprocity. The second is likability. You're more likely to give a concession to somebody you like. So that's why dressing is important. The way you talk, some of us have a feeling that negotiation is a hard, tough thing. No, make rapport, identify what you share in common. People are more likely to give concessions to guys, people who either share a name or who have a sister that shares a name they can relate with. The third, I've told you, is authority and power. People they are more likely to offer concessions to people they perceive to have authority or power. So if you demonstrate, like myself, I have had people who come to buy, and before I take them the other to make, maybe they want to seal, and I take them a bit also to what we do. And I show them that by the way we build, by the way we are able to do the house from ground up, we can do the designs, we understand this landscape, we can do the water levels, approvals, all that. Now, when we go to the land, at that point, we are not negotiating price. I'm showing them possibilities because they perceive I'm an authority in that area. Social proof is so important. There's a research that was showed about a 13 to 15% increase in people ordering a certain meal in a Chinese restaurant when they just added a small statement that many of our customers order for this meal. Social proof. Social proof is a concept where I say others are also doing it. It happens. Again, I'll give an example in real estate. People want to buy where others have already built. They say, it's a built area. They are already people. People want cars that their friends have also at least purchased. They say, my friend bought this one. So that is the concept of social proof, and then scarcity. We tend to want something more when we perceive it is scarce. When we perceive we are the only ones, exclusivity. They did a research where they showed that purchase of an item increased more when they wrote that we are only offering 4 of these. The people were likely to buy them quickly before they get finished. It's low scarcity. And then lastly, consistency. People have a tendency to continue being consistent with their previous decisions. For example, that's why people who start a business are likely to keep investing, even if it's a bad business, because it's consistent with what they previously thought to work. You're likely to make a purchase that is consistent with what you're already doing, okay? If you have driven a Subaru, you're likely to buy a Subaru when you go to a car bond. That is consistency. So you look at what this person is doing and you want to offer consistent value. Those are simple rules. I see my time is up. It's already 7:03. So I will stop there. But remember that negotiation is a part of our life, and it is a skill you develop, just like reading and writing. It's a science, it's not a random thing. And if you are to improve your outcomes, your income, your social networks, and all those other things, you better pay attention to learning or building some of these skills, like your negotiation skills. It's a much needed skill in the marketplace. It will determine your pay, it will determine your selling price. And remember to aim for a win-win, not a win-lose or a lose-lose or a lose-win or some form of compromise. I'll stop there, and questions are welcome.
Dr. Tony, you still had about 12 minutes to the end of the session. You're supposed to end at 7:15, unless you are providing this time more for discussion. If there's something else you wanted to share, you can still go ahead and say it until 7:15 a.m.
I'll open up because questions will then inform people's either aspirations or pain points. So I'll leave a bit of time so that people can ask questions. That will be okay.
All right. Thank you so much. Wow, what amazing sharing from Dr. Tony about negotiation skills. He has taken a very complicated and yet very important topic and broken it down into very simple principles that we can easily apply to our lives even today. We're going to open up this session now to some questions, but before we do, I'd just like to remind you that AKBS needs your financial support in order to be able to bring this series to you. So far, we have had several people who have contributed towards this, and we thank you so much for those contributions. We are also live streaming these sessions to YouTube. So if you would like to go back and review what Dr. Tony has shared or other previous presenters, feel free to go to the YouTube channel, Intercessors for Uganda, and there you will find the management series sessions recorded. You can connect with us on WhatsApp or Telegram. Please, those of you who are visiting the Intercessors for Uganda YouTube page, do not forget to subscribe and hit the bell button so that you can always get notifications when new content arrives. Without wasting any further time, I would like to open the floor now to questions so that we can maximize the time we have with Dr. Tony. Are there any questions? Any questions? Questions? Yes, Rachel Nankunda, you can go first.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Tony, for this. I'm asking, you talked about our perceptions of price versus quality. As a Christian, must I put my product or overprice my product because of the market? if I feel that my price is actually covers my costs and gives me a profit, and I want to give that to probably people who can't afford an overpriced product, how do I meet the two? That perception of quality versus price. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rachel. Doctor, would you like to answer one at a time, or would you take 3 or 4 questions at a time? Then answer all.
If we are about, we could take about 3 at a time.
Great. Before I invite Ruth Kibovi, Fiona asks, why do some people feel guilty about getting deals that seem too good? Is it an inferiority complex issue? I know consultants that ask for little, yet they could be paid more. That's the second question. Ruth Kigozi, you can go ahead and ask your question. Then I'll ask also the third question.
Thank you, Doctor, for that very wonderful presentation. My question goes to, these days when someone wants to pay for example, a consultancy, they gauge history of how you have been paid before. So how do you beat history of payment? For example, you've talked about value, you've talked about the value, but how do you how do you make better negotiation in view of your history of payments? Thanks.
Okay. Thank you so much. Should I go ahead and answer these ones?
Yes, please. Yes, please, Doctor.
Okay. So the first and the second questions are similar in terms of price and value. The second one was asking, how do you avoid guilt from asking higher? The first question was relating to the point I made that talk value, not price. That particular point was not looking at a price point per se. It was saying that, number one, consider the value that you're bringing and what you think you want to charge for it. But don't be motivated to undercharge in order to attract a client or in order to win a deal, because then you'll enter a lose-win situation. However, if your math tells you that the price you have charged is okay, and for the value that you are offering, that is fine. By all means, go ahead and charge. I will warn you, however, that the market the market doesn't care. What do I mean by the market doesn't care? The market has dynamics. For example, things that are cheap are perceived inferior, and that is a known science. So you could have a good product and very good intentions, and it probably won't be taken. As I gave you the example that we went in because we wanted to offer fairer prices for a consultancy that was of high value. And unfortunately, people were not taking it up because of how markets behave. And so when we engaged the consultant, he said, no, people know that certain things cost a certain amount. And when you undercharge, naturally they perceive that there must be some shortcuts or there is some inferiority with the offer you are making, rather than considering the price to be good. So you need to do your research and get a price point that doesn't communicate inferiority, but yet offers that value that you wish to offer. The other way to go about it is to say, this product costs this so much, but we have offered to pay for you 30%. So somebody who has a 3,000 can buy something that would normally be 5,000, but they do understand that it's 5,000. However, we have just discounted and met that cost. So there are dynamics of going around it so that the value that you're offering is actually appreciated. I will relate it to the Bible saying, do not throw your pearls to pigs because they'll trample them. People associate pearls with value. So they are supposed to be given at a certain value. And that's a natural law. So the sooner we understand it, the better. So I think that can help. There are ways to go around it. You rather have it as a donation, or you say buy 2 and get 1 free, or something like that. But don't underprice something thinking that you are actually offering very good value. It tends to achieve the opposite effects. Guilt while asking for higher pay. The Bible says that the laborer is worth his wages. Underpricing and overcharging are both not good. Find out the actual value and communicate it. Reason why you need to charge that amount rather than saying that your needs have increased, for example, or something like that. Communicate what value you are bringing, okay? Again, don't overcharge. Both extremes are not good. Overcharging, undercharging, they are both not good, because it means that you have treated what is of value as a common thing. The scripture also tells us about that, treating things that are of value as though it is a common thing. So both are actually not good. The third question was about how you beat history of payment, make better negotiation. I talked something about if I could go to the pre-persuasion. And if you look at the third point there, it talks about power or authority. Explain your value beforehand and come from a position of authority. There are about 10 things 10 forms of power or authority that can be perceived by the other person, and so strengthen your negotiation ability. One of them is scarcity. If you're a consultant and you're offering a scarce value, then that should come out. You should communicate. There are 6 people who are offering this in the whole country, and of them, I am the only one in this sub-region, and the value that I'm bringing to the table is this so much and is worth. And times change. So even if he sticks to the historical data, but perceives you are an authority, is likely to actually pay for the value that you are offering. The other one is courage. Courage is perceived as a form of power. Because most people will be timid even to ask. So if you have the courage to ask, you have already one leg in. Expertise. What kind of skill sets are you bringing? What unique abilities do you bring? That expertise is perceived as power. Knowledge of the need of the other person. You should know what they need. Why are they hiring a consultant in the first place? Do your research and find out their need, so that you come from a position of saying, look, I am bringing a solution to your challenges. I do understand that your organization has suffered this so much, or your organization wants to go to this so much. Remember, every time you're negotiating, you want to know, is the person in because they have a pain point, or is the person in because they have an aspiration? And the way you negotiate is different. When a person has a pain point and he's consulting, it means there is a bother. So you communicate a solution that addresses the pain. When a person has an aspiration, it is different, because for an aspiration, price is not usually the important thing. The value that you bring to them, or the feeling of goodness, or feeling of importance, or feeling of progress is what they are more interested in. So find out why they are hiring a consultant. And of course, empathy. A lot of times we are not empathetic. Some people talk arrogantly. Maybe us in the medical field, these days, I don't know now if the number of people have changed, but a number of people will be arrogant. They'll just say, if you want, you do it. They don't explain to the patient. They don't try to discuss, this is why we are doing this. These are the options. So empathy is very, very important in negotiation. Don't be a hard person. And then they should know that there is a reward and a punishment system. If they perceive that you have the power to either institute a reward or a punishment system, to either withdraw a service or offer it, they are likely to respect your position, better than if they think that you are desperate. So don't go to a negotiation desperate. And then they need to know that you have invested time and resources. It's a form of power. When somebody perceives that you have invested 13 years in studying what you know, maybe 15 years of hard work in that field, and therefore it has made you an authority, they are likely to respect your ask than if you come and you say, I started doing this work last year. Or if they know that you have invested some good amount of money in this business, it means you have made a sacrifice. That is a form of power. And of course, indifference. Don't be all like spaghetti. Sometimes you need to take your ground and you say, no, that won't work. That is called indifference, and it is perceived also as power. So the 10 forms of power or tend to, if you apply them in the pre-persuasion equation, in the discussion before the negotiation, or in the preparation, the process before the negotiation, is going to give you a better position in your negotiation and will likely give a better outcome, and of course, a better outcome for everyone. And I assume that you actually bring in true value to the table.
Very well put. Thank you so much, Dr. Tony. Value. You've shared so many points on authority. I would like to know, do you have literature that you can recommend to our audience that they can go to and do some further reading on some of these aspects of negotiation? Because you've talked about 10 aspects of authority, and it would be good if there is a resource or a set of resources that audience can read and then enrich themselves in this aspect of negotiation. As you answer that, I would like to ask Ben or Nick, you can ask your question. Then I'll read the third question.
Pardon? You said...
Hello?
Yes, Benoni, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Tony, for your time and for the good presentation. I just have a question related to the concept of consumer ignorance. I believe as well Christian is about to men how to relate to consumer ignorance.
If I'm getting you correctly, Ben, you're saying, how do you address the issue of consumer ignorance? Is that correct, Ben? You are not very clear.
Exactly. Yes,
okay,
yes.
Very good.
How do we relate the concept of consumer ignorance to Christians in the market?
Okay, very good. Next, the last question. Thank you, Ben. The next question, Doctor, that you're going to answer is a very interesting question by Annette Magolo. Is it? No, sorry. Yes, by Joseph Oryang. He says that, what is your comment on the common guilt many Christians have about making profit from business? Many would feel more comfortable being paid a good salary than making profits out of business. Those are the 3 questions, Doctor, to you. Then we'll have 3 more questions.
Okay. I will start with Joseph's question. Okay, I'll give just the number of resources, but I'll just highlight 2 of them that are good in negotiation. One of them is a book called Pre-Persuasion by Robert Cialdini. He has several other books, so you can look out for that. Robert Cialdini is a psychologist and does psychology of negotiation and psychology of deal making. And you can read also the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. This will give you a very good perspective. That's by Covey. And if you're in business, of course, to know about the value you bring, because I kept emphasizing that there's built to last and there is good to great, and they'll just help you to have a perspective of how you can build your value, so that when you are negotiating, actually, you are bringing a bit of value to the table. I'll quickly move to Ben, who said, how do you address the question of consumer ignorance? It depends on the market you're dealing with. either if you are at the top of the pyramid or the bottom of the pyramid. Basically, the solution is education, how you educate the customer. If you are at the bottom of, if you're addressing a market segment that is bottom of the pyramid, there are numbers, so you're likely to employ media in doing that. If you are addressing a segment that is at the top of the pyramid, there are fewer, so you're likely probably to do CMEs, educational material, or hold seminars or conferences. In medicine, we have what we call CMEs, continuous medical education. And if there is a new product, what companies do is to organize training that we talk about maybe a certain disease and how that product is applied. And then you bring knowledge to, in that case, we would be the consumers, the doctors would be the consumers of that test. So educating the consumer, or educating the customer, or educating your counterpart in whichever negotiation is important. Again, if you remember the thing I told you about, that don't concentrate on price, concentrate on the value. What you are trying to do is to educate this person about the options that are available and why you are the best suited person to bring this option. That is a form of education. So every time you're involved in a negotiation, your focus should be to help the other person understand the dynamics around that particular case. A lot of people go in negotiations when they actually don't even know. They go to purchase when they don't know much about the product. They just feel, or they've seen it with a friend, or they've heard about it. So it is your duty to first educate them so that they are better informed and they can see that this is what they are taking. Even if they don't take from you, or even if they don't give you a deal or a concession, that's okay, because you have invested for the future. Sooner than later, you'll have referrals from that kind of thing. The other one is the common guilt on making profit. I'll tell you that the Bible is very interesting, because the master expects you to be profitable. And every time you're unprofitable, unfruitful, unproductive, actually, they cast you away. So profitability is important. I like the chapter 19 of Luke, in which we are told that a certain nobleman, in that case, Christ was referring to himself, but he went to a far country to obtain a kingdom for himself and come. We read from about verse 12 going onwards, that story. But he says when he came back, when he was going, he told them, do business until I come. Hence the series of Occupy we did. That word occupy means to do business. It means to take charge. It means to take control. And he came and said, he called his servants to see what each one had gained by trading. And he was expecting a profit. The one who didn't gain anything, he said he was wicked. It is similar to the parable of talents in Matthew 25. So it is important for you to know that a profit is a very holy thing to do. It is just being exorbitant, or things like hoarding that the Bible discourages, okay? Or cheating, usury, those he discourages. That's charging exorbitant interest. But a profit is very, very good, okay? If you create value. And that's why the West developed. One of the key things which made the West to develop was the patent law, so that people could share knowledge and yet know that they will gain from their discovery. Because in Africa, you see that even now, somebody has a medicine or a drug or a herb that actually works, but they hide it. They don't share it because they feel people will just take it for free. Every time you don't reward value created, you don't reward effort, you actually kill that. That's why communism failed, or socialism, because they would reward laziness. Laziness is not of the Bible, and profitability is not of the Bible. So I encourage you that it is okay to do business. It is okay to trade. It is okay to make a profit. And that's why the master said he called them to see what they had gained by trading. And he says, the least you would have done was to put my money in the bank so that it brings some interest. Are you seeing that? So he expects a gain. Every time you gain, that's a win. Because when you gain, either in value or increase, imagine if you are single, you marry a wife, you have negotiated, that's the gain. Now a family can start. Imagine you were earning 100,000, now you're earning 400, you have gained. So you can be able to meet your needs and the needs of others. That is an increase. So there is nothing unholy in that. there is everything holy in it. So profitability is of the Bible. It is actually expected. Unprofitability is what is not of the Bible, not being profitable.
Thank you very much, Doctor, for emphasizing that the Bible says that the servant who did not invest was chased away as a wicked servant. So may we not be counted as those who are wicked. The other question is, we have an issue in our country where our employers always end negotiation terms for our salaries on a win-lose. This is a question from Senyange Prosi. And at the end of the day, the employee feels underpaid and they're grumbling. And how can we deal with this? Because it seems it's everywhere. It says it's in the medical field, education field, and several other fields. Then the other question was from Annette Magolo, which is where she says that, is it possible to do right pricing, but also provide for the poor who can't afford? That is ensuring that they don't send clients away who generally have less money, but would like to benefit from the service. That's the second question. The third question is that sometimes in an issue, for example, for technical people, this is a question from Fiona Lukwago, we have those who are very technical, they understand their trade, but they are poor negotiators. Does it help them if they team up with a good negotiator? And what would be the risk in them doing that? Thank you.
Wow, interesting questions. I will start with that one.
We only have 2 minutes.
Yeah, that one, if you're dealing with people who are, if you are technical, there are 4 kinds of people: the technocrats, the managers, then there are, of course, the entrepreneurs who live in the future. The technocrats live in the present. They believe that you want something done well, do it yourself. The managers live in the past. Okay, they want historical data and all that. I don't have a lot of time, but yes, it's important that you find people who are better at something and you have an agreement and you work. 2 are better than 1 because they have a good return for their labor. So that shows to partnership. Proper pricing while catering for the poor. It is a common thing among the believers that somehow when you're doing business, there's a guilt of feeling like if you charge people as if you're not looking for the poor. The 2 are different issues and they are both addressed. I like the Bible analogy where you would harvest, but then they will tell you that you do not glean the edges. Do you get that? They would make sure that somebody who has planted would harvest their garden, but you don't go back. There are those leftovers, or if the grain falls, the poor would feed on it, or don't clean the edges. So there are rules for both. It is the same with business. Don't mix the 2, charity and business. You are going to collapse. If you want to give, make your profit. Off your profit, have what to give. And that's why I told you, you can actually purchase things for some people. If it is, for example, sanitary pads, and you are selling them, I could sell 1,000, but I say, I am going to buy 20 for those who can't afford. That's a better model than saying, I will lower my prices so that people can afford. It's a bad approach, almost certainly never works. And you will collapse, and then nobody can help the other. Because now a blind person can't lead a blind. You need to be in a better position of helping another person. So the 2 are important. They are not the same. And both are important and they're done differently. And I'll refer you to that story you go and read Boaz's story from the book of Ruth, and you see how Boaz conducted business. It's a very, very good example of somebody who was generous, yet was a very good manager. That's what I would tell you. Lastly, employers often end on a win-lose. It's because of ignorance, okay? It's because of ignorance and gullibility. But again, for us, that's why we are here. To learn that if you are an employer, you are looking at rewarding people for their time, and otherwise you have a higher turnover. I'll again encourage the two books, Built to Last and Good to Great, especially Good to Great, because it talks about how to build a great business. And in a great business, people are important, and knowing people who are of value. If I had time, I think I have 10 seconds. I had somebody, when we started to manufacture masks, we took 2 months failing to really make sure that we align that nose bar, that thing that is above that you press over your nose to hold the mask, until we went and got a gentleman from another company called Leader, and they asked him if he could be of help. And we were, our money was low, but because this person was bringing value, we said, let's negotiate and pay him what he wants. And he dropped our costs by half, literally, just by bringing technical know-how. So knowledge is very important, and people are more important in a business than just your profit. And they drive excellence. They drive the long-term outcomes of a business. So our understanding is important, and it's important you communicate that to the bosses. It's that the long-term value is more important than short-term wins. Short-term wins have a tendency to look like they are good, but they are just short-term. Long-term thinking is better for an enterprise, for a business, for an organization, and it's important that you look at it that way. My time is up. Thank you so much for listening. I do pray that you go and listen to this thing again and look at some of the PPTs. I try to distill and summarize knowledge that would need in I don't know how many lectures, and put it in a smaller part, but the summary of it will be improve your negotiation skills, because you lose a lot when you negotiate just generically, and you gain a lot when you negotiate from a position of knowledge, from a position of information, from a position of strength rather than weakness and desperation. God bless you. Thank you so much.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. Tony, for that amazing exposition on the importance of negotiation and how to negotiate right. I pray that you have received the value that I have received. And now that we are over our time, I would like to wish you all a wonderful and blessed day. We apologize for shooting over by 3 minutes. May you be able to have time to review this. And if you have had value, please give, please give. Thank you so much and have a blessed day.